last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live
from a tiny studio somewhere in North America.
This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host,
the silverback of ufology.
Here's Don Ecker.
And good day, everybody. It's great to be here. Out here in sunny Southern California, we've been having some outstanding weather. It's been hovering right around 80 degrees. What is today's date? February 24th. Oh my God, that wacky California weather. And all the fires are out, believe it or not. So that's great. And tonight we've got a very interesting and special show with one of our favorite guests, Mr. Marc Dantonio, who's going to be telling us about his new addition to his astronomy equipment. Actually, a brand new telescope, which will give an increased window into the universe. And I got to tell you, that's something that has Twitter my patered forever. I've always loved astronomy. I've got, as a matter of fact, an 8-inch Celestron telescope, but got to be honest, I haven't used it recently. But the one that Mark got is even bigger. So before I go any further, also joining us tonight, as per usual, Mr. Mark Center and Mr. Gary Kissel. And gentlemen, it's great to have you here. How you doing?
Very
Go
good.
ahead, Mark.
Well,
Very
moving right
good.
along. Moving right along.
It's all going good, Don. We got no fires except in my heart for you. It's all good.
All right. All righty. Well, let's bring Marc Dantonio on and see how the heck he's doing. Mark, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing all right.
Good to see you, Don.
Yes, good to see you too.
Mark
I'm hovering
and Gary.
above you now.
I know you're right up there. You're like, oh,
You
I'm
keep
not
working like
worthy.
a puppet if you put your hands up.
That's how I see it. I'm not worthy. Ah! It's like, whoa. The big hand goes, whoa, hey. Ah!
So anyway, you have upgraded your process, Mark.
Yeah.
Was that a 14-inch you've got?
No. It's an 11, but it's a beautiful addition because it's going to be one of two in that building. But we have the one that's out in the Sonoran Desert, west of Phoenix by about 75, 80 miles out in the desert. And that one, I was running it yesterday and running this new one together at the same time. And they're 220 miles apart from each other. And I was running them both from 2,600 miles away here in Connecticut. And so I was showing people wide field views with our telescope that's out in the desert, in the Sonoran Desert, and then showing close-up views, magnified, highly views of the center of the very same thing that we're photographing over 220 miles away in the other building. And there's literally no one doing this on the planet. There's no one doing this. I don't understand it. It's just,
That's not true. You're doing it.
Well, that's true. That's true. But no one's actually, I haven't seen anyone giving, astronomy instruction and making the pictures available for free after we take them to people. They're all available. People can just go in, and we have a server. We have a iPhone, Android, Mac, and PC app. I'm already using the app on the PC, and allows you to dig through the data for several years, and you can look at the pictures we take of every object we ever took, and you can go by month, you can go by object. It's incredible. And that was written by a super fan in Bulgaria by the name of Isabella, and she just said, and she has a very creative mind, okay, like all of us in this business, and she decided to build an app. Next thing you know, I have an app on my iPhone that actually does this and allows us to look at all the observations we've made for the last 4 years.
Wow.
Instantly, and it's really cool. And we also have other features in there. Because of this app, she was able to find asteroids that had been in the fields that we didn't know about, because what she was doing was something that we're going to add in as a standard feature, and that's being able to look at a past nebula that we took, a gas cloud, then look at a different one we took, subtract the two, and whatever's in there is something that shouldn't be there. So we're going to be able to look and see things that are transient objects that shouldn't be there. This could be a UFO. This could be an asteroid. This could be a star that disappears. And I know there's other people that are studying stars that seem to have vanished. You know, and there's a whole host of things going on out there in that arena. So it's pretty cool. And these two telescopes are going to afford us one other thing that's really important. We're going to be able to look at the moon in new ways, because we're going to be able to take a picture of the moon from one telescope, take a picture from the other telescope, okay, and then make a 3D image of the moon for the first time ever.
Cool. Now, I got a question. You mentioned a magic word several times just now, and that word is asteroid. Now, yesterday, as a matter of fact, I was going through some reels on, I forget where the hell it was, but at any rate, an asteroid was mentioned that was recently discovered that is supposed to make a very scary close approach to Earth in the next couple of years. Are you familiar with that?
Absolutely.
Mark?
It's 2024 YR4. It's an asteroid. It's about 33 feet across. So I guess by astronomical terms, it's a mini asteroid. It's not a planet killer. It's not going to cause extinction event on the Earth in any way, shape, or form. By comparison, the Chelyabinsk meteor that entered over Russia back in 2012 was it? That one was the size of a house. Okay, and it ended up injuring about 1,000 people on the ground. The shockwave blew in metal security doors, and because the Russians love their dash cams, you actually saw all these events, and it was actually really one of the most well-recorded asteroid strikes.
It blew in stainless steel doors.
It did. You actually see it happen. You watch these security doors bend and fold in, from the shockwave. Yeah, and that's the pressure, the overpressure of the air, the shockwave in the air, when the asteroid blew up in the atmosphere, like 90 miles up. So
well, let's go back. Let's go back roughly 12,000 years or so. Apparently, there was a near extinction event believed to be caused by the Taurid comet, which had been a huge body that something happened to that broke it apart, but around the time of the Younger Dryas event, some of those pieces and parts impacted the Earth, which really screwed the pooch. Suddenly, all the megafauna, all the large animals that had previously been around in the millions disappeared. Probably a lot of then existing human beings vanished, especially here in North America. Where do you come down on that, Mark?
Well, the Younger Dryas event, was an event to be reckoned with. It was definitely an event that caused issues. Obviously, it was a
Yeah, you can
asteroid
say.
strike, and it was such a powerful hit that you actually got the fused products of the fused products embedded in some of the structures at the time, and so that was something that you just couldn't do artificially or by the fact that we had fire. There's nothing that would generate that. You would have to have an impact event to make such a powerful fused product of high intensity temperatures and blast radius from the event, and that's what they saw there. I think that's so I come down on it as a very interesting event. And again, in the early 1900s, we had Tunguska, all right, the Tunguska strike, and the Tunguska strike was, by all accounts, probably a small cometary object. So mostly ice, maybe some rock. And when that blew up, 80, 90 miles up, it too made a massive shockwave. It was bigger than the Chelyabinsk meteor, probably smaller than the Younger Dryas object. But when it struck, it actually didn't actually hit the Earth. It actually blew up at high altitude, and the shock wave knocked down trees for 30 miles in every direction where the blast was. I mean, we're talking trees, big, giant trees, 24, 30 inches in diameter. Knocked them right down, kind of like Mount St. Helens did with its pyroclastic flow when the main event went off in the 1980. So I think that when you talk about the power of such a discharge of that much energy in the upper atmosphere, the shock waves are the things that we have to contend with. The strike itself, that can have its own problems too. Especially if it throws a pall of dust up into the air that circles the Earth a few times. But in this particular case, Younger Dryas struck the Earth, and particles were the fusion products of the impact material, the molten glass that was created and so forth, was spewed into structures and so forth and embedded in them. But the Tunguska had absolutely no physical evidence other than the downed trees and the eyewitness accounts. There was a farmer over 40 miles from the event who saw this bright light in the sky and then this big flash, and he turned away, but then the thermal wave burned the shirt off his back. So he ended up with burns from 40 miles away. So there's a lot of energy dissipated when such an event happens. So that's something.
Well, I got a question about that. Back in the early 60s.
Yes.
I was a freak for books by people like Frank Edwards. He had written several books discussing phenomena, anomalies, what have you. And there was a chapter in there about the Tunguska event. And after the end of the Second World War, from what I recall, there was a Russian, well, at that time, Soviet scientist that had either been to Tunguska or had flown over it. And he came back with a theory about what this might have been. Now, they did go out. They did do a lot of examination. They thought that there might have been a meteor that was responsible for this. They never did find anything.
Right.
So they came to the conclusion it was an airburst. But he said, I saw something like this before. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where there were two nuclear airburst, which basically ended the Second World War. Now, one of the things that he claimed to have discovered was residual radiation. And he had a theory, and I'm not saying I subscribe to this, but he had a theory that actually what had blown up coming down was an extraterrestrial spaceship powered by nuclear power. And the radiation may have emanated from that. Now, Mark, I trust your background. I trust your instincts. I trust your research. Are you aware of residual radiation there at that event? And if so, what do you think it might have came from?
Okay, first of all, the event that occurred at Tunguska, it was approximately 10 or so megatons in magnitude, so maybe 12 or more. But so that's a pretty heavy duty yield nuclear weapon. And when you look at what happens with these explosive airbursts like this, it's hard to tell the difference, right? So when you watch the damage that they create, when you watch the the shock wave and the overpressure, the speed of propagation, when you look at the heat generated, they all look similar for similar amounts of yield, so to speak. What will be different is the radiation. In the case of a airburst of a nuclear weapon, there's going to be radioactive fallout. In the case of Tunguska, there wasn't any radioactive fallout per se. And so all of the possibilities are couched in the fact that the research at the time was kind of haphazard, and the reason was because Tunguska was exceedingly remote, and they couldn't get there to do any type of reasonable analysis of the area because it was so remote. It took a long time to get there. So any residual effects will have dissipated somewhat. So I don't see anything that says there was a whole lot of radiation generated other than thermal wave and so forth. I don't. And just because the energy approaches that of a nuclear weapon doesn't mean it was a nuclear weapon. So I'm on the side thinking that this is what happens when a cometary body, a nucleus of a comet, hits our planet. It's going to do the same kind of thing. It's going to look a similar way.
Okay. Mark?
Well, I'm wondering, since there was a witness 40 miles away, and I don't know any of this stuff, how at the moment of, let's call it impact, how far away would that radiation travel in such an amount that it would have made that guy sick or killed him or should have?
Well, that's the thing. It's such a remote area that records are scant, anyway. And so even the exact distance he was standing was, you see a variety of distances given, but in terms of the thermal wave, all right, that's infrared energy, and that travels very fast, right? It's electromagnetic radiation, so it travels the speed of light, infrared energy, so it's going to reach you very quickly. So that radiation is going to strike you. If you're seeing the light, you're getting the radiation. I mean, it's that simple. So infrared radiation is going to hit you right away, right? And so what comes later is the shock wave, So you'll get that thermal wave, and then the shock wave will follow up because that's a physical, compression wave of air being forced right at you. And that's going to take some time to get to you. So the farther away you are, the longer it takes for the shock wave to reach you, but the light's going to get there right away. It's effectively instantly, for anyone on the Earth. Don is muted.
Gary, do you have any questions or remarks?
Well, it's just, it's funny. I didn't learn about the Tunguska blast until I saw it mentioned in Ghostbusters when I was younger. And I thought it was just some bullshit that was in the movie, and then found out, oh, it was real. And you've got a lot of those people that theorize that it was another UFO crash, or that it was an above ground burst. Because one of the things is like the first atomic bombs, they were airbursts, and Don brought that up, and I think it was 60 feet in the air, if I recall right. And they were designed that way for yield, as I recall.
More like 1,500 feet.
Was it? Because I don't know, man. I remember reading in a book that it was 60 for both, but I don't know. I don't have it in front of me right now. But either way it goes, there were airbursts for a specific reason. Whereas this blew up in the air, did similar kind of damage, but it was purely because of just the power. And have there ever been elements from this asteroid found? Because I read that some of it was found by Soviet Russia, and I don't know if we've ever seen it.
I'm not sure. By the way, just for the record, 2,000 feet is the altitude that the Hiroshima little boy or whatever, Fat Man
and Little Boy,
yeah, that's the altitude that they were detonated at.
And it was done because it was the yield that they wanted.
Yeah, the airburst was going to do maximum damage. The overpressure is massive, and that overpressure would just flatten everything. And of course, the thermal pulse would wipe out everything anywhere near it, of course. And that happens if an asteroid hits our planet too.
Marc Dantonio, do you think that, relatively speaking, we've been very lucky the last, let's say, 3, 4, 5 centuries, that although we have, and almost daily, we get pelted with small, tiny meteorites and space dust, what have you, but that we haven't had something much larger come in and strike us?
Well, we do have fairly large objects hitting every year. You may notice and hear in the news, but yes, we've been lucky. But let me expound on what I think about that. And I don't know what you guys think about this, but I'm sure I'll hear what you have to say. But each year you hear people in England talking about mystery booms that they hear coming in from over the ocean. You also hear people in Nova Scotia talking about mystery booms they hear coming in from over the ocean. The Earth is mostly water, so the likelihood of an asteroid striking the ground is actually rather slim. So it's going to strike water when it comes in, and it may not even be witnessed unless it's picked up electronically by instruments. All right. So when an object comes in over the ocean, let's say the middle of the Atlantic, say south of Greenland, okay, south of Iceland, when it explodes and disintegrates, it may be a massive object, and that sound can travel all the way to England, all the way to Nova Scotia, Iceland, Greenland, okay? And people hear these sounds and report them and say, hey, we had a big boom came from across the ocean. What's going on over there? But it's actually the sound of these large asteroids exploding in our atmosphere. And so every year you hear of several of these events around the world from various oceans. And I think it's pretty interesting how the sound travels. Now, the sound travels much more efficiently underwater. So who knows what the whales are hearing underneath the water when these things strike, because they could be an airburst. And then when something comes in the atmosphere, let's say it's moving at, say, 10 kilometers per second when it comes in the atmosphere, it blows up, airburst, massive airburst. And then those particles now fall down to the ocean. Well, by the time they hit the water, they're actually falling at their terminal velocity, which means they're going to fall as fast as a object that's this big and has a certain density is going to fall. So if you drop a rock from the Empire State Building, it's not going to fall faster and faster and faster. It's going to speed up and then reach a constant terminal velocity. So when the thing blows up, most of the energy is dissipated in that explosion, and the things get shot backwards, forward, up, down, and then they start to get subject to the air resistance, and they'll fall, and very likely, unless they're actually really, really fast moving, they'll actually fall at a terminal velocity. Now, the other day, I watched a video. It was a Ring camera, and you guys probably saw this, of a house, and right outside his door, a meteor struck. And it sounded like lightning strike, right? So this thing came barreling in, and it was more than just a rock falling at terminal velocity. It had some additional velocity. So it was a much bigger object, and what was left was this last piece coming down, and it hit and went bang, and so you just saw things shake, saw dirt fly up. It was right in his flower bed outside of his door, you know. And a few miles from here, in the 60s, a woman got hit by a meteorite. She had a black and blue on her whole side. You saw that famous picture. Well, she was down the road here.
It impacted with the house, and part of that house is what hit her, as I recall, because that's why she didn't die.
Well, what happened was the meteor went through the roof, went through the upper floors, went through the floor she was watching TV on, went and hit the basement floor, and bounced back up and came up through the floor again and hit her.
Yeah.
So obviously it took parts of the house with it, but she got hit by the meteorite as well, which I thought was kind of interesting after it had lost almost all of its energy. That's
who would
crazy.
you sue?
I guess, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and does homeowners even cover that? Sorry, act of God.
They call it act of God.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry. He's got the in for you. We don't cover you. We're just pulling your insurance, as a matter of fact.
Here's a little side thing. So out in the ocean, kaboom, it hits the water, the whales hear it, feel it, or there's a chance of that, right? And the water itself will transmit it in a certain way. And then we have the offshore windmills off of New Jersey that they stopped because of whatever technology they were using out there was evidently screwing with the whales out there, and they were getting messed up by them and either dying or ending up on the shore. So it's interesting that some extraterrestrial thing, let's call it, could come in and boom, and yet you don't see a bunch of whales floating out in the middle of the ocean, right? So
Right.
it is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if the windmills were creating a resonant frequency within the water that was messing with their
They think it
perception.
was the construction process, whatever stuff they were using
Okay.
to figure out where they could drill, sonar, I don't know, but something was screwing with them, and yet something can come in like that, and it's like a party for the whales, I suppose. Hey.
Well, there's something to that, because in the U.S. Navy, you guys know I worked for the Navy a lot, and submarines are my specialty in the Navy, and in that regard. So one of the things about this is that submarines have sonar. They have active pinging, just like whales. You know, they send out a ping, right? Whales can ping. They can receive sound that way. Of course, they communicate that way. Well, a submarine's ping is so many watts, so much higher than a whale's. It can actually hurt the whale, if not kill it, if he gets hit with a direct sonar ping, because it'll jelly his organ that makes the sonar and the receiver. So they have very strict policies on how they do active pinging. In time of war, all bets are off. The whales have to go hide, or they're going to probably get pinged to death or whatever. But the actual truth is that the submarines have a policy of you can't do pinging unless it's absolutely necessary, because there's wildlife restrictions on pinging. It can hurt animals, dolphins, You know,
Well, that brings to mind the
and we
story.
kill divers too, by the way.
The story,
Yeah.
Mark, that you've told several times about your experience when a submarine you were on detected what they called a fast walker.
Fast mover.
Or I'm sorry, fast mover. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But I have recently, and when I say recently, the last year or so, saw some things online. And of course, online, I got to say, my regular nature is to be highly skeptical.
Yeah, right.
But there have been some interesting stories about detecting Leviathan type creatures beneath the waves. And one of the suggestions that this one poster made is that it might have been a megalodon, which would be, on the one hand, fascinating to the max. On the other hand,
Yeah.
it'd keep me the hell out of the ocean forever. But what I'm sure you've seen some of
Don,
these
you're
things.
not even a snack for these things, so don't even worry about it.
Yeah, well,
You're not even an appetite.
easier said than done. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So I watched something about this, Don. Funny you should say this, and it was on YouTube, so it's got to be real. No, it's a gal who does, the research and such, not a paranormal channel. And here's what she said, and this kind of falls in line with Bigfoot and other things. She said, take into account the amount of food it would take to keep even one alive. And they showed the size of one of those with the whales and stuff, right? Then she said, we have proof of what they ate because we could find fossilized bones and those teeth from the megalodon and show the damage to the bones and things. And she said, well, how about like in the Meg, which I like to Transporter guy as much as the next person. So the Meg is a crazy film, but if it's all the way down there, there's no food down there for it. And she basically blew it out of the water. And she says, absolutely not. She wasn't saying there may not be cryptids out there somewhere, but she said the megalodon, everything you're seeing on the YouTubes and all that, it's not real. It's just not happening.
That's funny you say that because when you look at what actually lives in the deep ocean, I mean, you have the surface zone, right? And then you have midwater, which is that area where the sun no longer penetrates. And then you have the deep ocean. Well, if the megalodon lived in the deep ocean, it could never come up higher because the pressure that it's not used to will destroy it. So it has to stay in the deep water. But we know the sperm whale can dive thousands of feet for its main quarry, which is the giant squid. We know the giant squid exists because we look at the scars on some of these sperm whales, and these tentacles are like 25 or more feet long, and the suckers are really big on these arms of these squid that they ate as they were vainly trying to fight off their attacker. Well, so obviously we know there's deep water fauna down there they're able to get to that area and come back up. The sperm whale has a unique ability to be able to dive deep and then come back to the surface without damage. Okay. But many fish that live in the deep ocean and come up literally explode when you bring them to the surface. So you got to keep them in pressurized containers if you expect that specimen to make it to the lab table, So the pressure has a way of keeping them away from us. They can't come to the surface if they're in the deep ocean because they will not survive. Now,
well, how does the sperm whale do it, Mark?
Well, the sperm whale has the ability to dive deep because it was built that way. It has the ability to, and I'm not saying that the megalodon wouldn't if it existed, but the sperm whale has the ability to go deep in the water and not have the pressure is compressing it, but it still maintains because the whale is actually kind of uncompressible. It's got a lot of water in its tissues like you do. When you go in the deep ocean, the only thing keeping you from being able to go all the way to the bottom of the ocean is the fact that you have sinuses, okay, that are air filled, and lungs that are air filled. Now, in the movie The Abyss, okay, they showed you this experimental device where they would breathe this, highly oxygenated liquid,
Exotic
right?
gas.
Well, it was
No, it
actually
was
it was a
water.
liquid.
Yeah.
It was a liquid. It wasn't even water. It was a special syrup, and they had to pump it through to get him to survive with it. Um, that was based on a real experiment,
Mm-hmm.
and that real experiment done by the Navy was successful to some extent. The only problem was when you pump fluid into the lungs, it's really hard to get it out. So you have to literally let yourself drown on this material to start breathing this stuff. And then you got to have faith that your battery doesn't run out of your pump to keep it going. And and so they managed to do this with this hypersaturated solution. But unfortunately, the people they tested it on, they couldn't get that stuff expelled out of their lungs, and they effectively gave them pneumonia. And so that was extremely detrimental. And of course, I think some of them actually died, ultimately from trying to heal from this experiment. So they abandoned the liquid breathing approach, but they could go effectively to the full depth because your legs aren't compressible, your hands aren't compressible. There's no air in here to compress. It's all water-based tissue. Yes, it squeezes, okay, and it'll make it as small as it possibly can be, okay. And when it squeezes your heart and everything else around the rib cage, okay, that also adds extra, like a liter of extra blood that's being squeezed up into your brain and everywhere else. So that's called the submersion reflex. And so when you have that going too, I talked to Duke University about this actually, and when you have that going for you, it makes it such that we might be able to do this, but it would be dangerous for us to try to do this as a basic thing. So Aquaman, for instance, couldn't live in the water and then come up and breathe air on the land unless he had a totally different mechanism. So if he had gills or actual gills, they would have to be designed in such a way that they could provide enough oxygen filtered out of the water to keep him going under the water. And then he'd have to have a way of another way of like opening up the trachea so he could get air into the lungs, which are dormant while he's underwater, kind of a thing. You can't put something in the lungs and expect that they'll just come back out.
Yeah,
Well, a lot of people are very, well, at least they used to be very familiar with World War II submarine movies, things like Run Silent, Run Deep,
Yep.
those kind of films. And usually, okay, one of those subs would get into trouble. The enemy would be coming, dropping depth charges, looking for it. They dive real deep, maybe 500-600 feet. But then they had to be careful because there was a chance that the submarine would implode. Well, today, okay, we have our nuclear fleet, which I don't even know if it's available, how deep they can truly go.
It's not published. I know about some of the data. I also know the speeds that they published are not correct. I know in one particular case, we had a sub that actually went over 100 miles an hour underwater.
Yeah.
Okay. It went so fast it ripped off one of its fins actually, and it had to limp back to Groton, Connecticut. So,
well, my point that I was trying to get to, and my wife accused me all the time. She said, "Don, just get to the point." Okay, here it is. My point is, what is protocol when they detect something they cannot easily identify when they're down there, Mark?
Very good question, and I didn't know it either until I witnessed it. When the sonar guy saw this thing, he called to the con, said there was a fast mover, and that's the first time I heard those words together, fast mover, and I thought, oh no, it's a torpedo. Why is someone shooting a torpedo at us out here in the North Atlantic? I was just a guest member. I agreed to go on the trip because they said it'll be really fun. You can have a good time, but it's sort of a thank you for work you've been doing. Okay, great. So I went, and I immediately regretted it in that moment because I thought I'm going to die out here. Got hot under the collar, began to sweat. Okay. And the executive officer came over, and here's how it went. He said, "What do you got?" And the kid gave him the bearing and the range, but he was pointing away from me, and I couldn't hear it because it's loud on a sub. There's a din of noise at all times, high pressure air, radio calls, noise of instrumentation, beeping, other stuff. But then the executive officer said, how fast was it moving? And the kid put his arms out, turned to the side, and yelled. I don't think he meant to yell, but he said, "Several hundred knots, sir." Several hundred knots, sir. And I sat there, and all of a sudden, I was like, that's not a torpedo. Now I'm intrigued. And then the XO did this. He said, and the kid had his hands out, like, what do I do? And the XO just didn't miss a beat, said, okay, log it and dog it. And the kid went, "Sir, yes, sir." Turned right back to his console, like nothing, went right back to work. And as I mentioned to you countless times, me, Mr. Big Shot, the guy that was invited to go on this boat, I got up, went over to the XO and said, "Sir, I'm familiar with these fast movers. Is there anything I can help you with?" And he goes, "It's Antonio, right?" I said, "Sir, yes, sir." "You having a good trip so far?" "Sir, yes, sir." "Let's keep it that way." Okay, I'll just go over here. So I went back. I sat in that sonar seat, and my leg was going a mile a minute, just bouncing up and down because I was now anxious to start researching this stuff. And about 4 years later, I had the opportunity to do another job for the Joint Chiefs. I was working for one of the chiefs, okay, doing a special project from here in Connecticut, drove it down, classified, drove it in, went to his house and sat with him. I leaned over the couch to him and I said, "Sir," and my brain is saying, "Don't ask you with it. Don't, no, ixnay on the ASCII say, okay, don't say it." But the words are already coming out. "What can you tell me about this fast mover program?" And I went like that right after I covered my mouth. Like, oh no.
I didn't ask that. The guy behind me did.
He smiled at me and he says, "Oh, I can't talk about that program, Mark. I'm sorry." And I went, "It's okay, sir. Thank you." And I was like, "Oh boy, it's real." So here is this leads me to answer your question in long form here. Sorry. The operational procedure, if you will, for seeing these things is to just observe and report. Do not engage. See, we had a boat that tried to engage in the 60s off of Puerto Rico. There was a task force down there, 5 submarines. Okay. One of them caught wind of something that was trailing them, turned around and started chasing this object, playing the cat and mouse game. And the object took off at hundreds of knots. And then when they would catch up, it would take off again. And they did this for several days. And it would take off again. Then one time it sort of stopped. And when they got close, it went, and it dropped thousands of feet underwater in what seemed like a heartbeat. And then next thing you know, it was thousands of feet in the distance. It's gone. So it's almost like it was playing with them, And this was actually a famous event that I actually talk about in one of my lectures. And that's incredible. Now, another one, all right. Why was it doing that off Puerto Rico? Nobody knows, all right? We still don't know. But then this happens on the surface too, because about these objects that seem to come out of the water at times and fly into the sky. We've heard of this before. Well, nowhere did we hear about it more than with the Kitsukawa Maru case. This was a case of Japanese freighter crossing the Atlantic, and everybody on that ship saw these objects going out of the water into the sky. All right, and then disappearing into the distance. And they had the presence of mind to log the latitude and longitude of the location where this was occurring. And they reported it. And because there was no evidence after that, the case sort of went away. But the latitude and longitude is well known. And guess where it is? It's at the very end of the Marianas Trench. The very southern end of the Marianas Trench, right there.
Well, if you had the technology
Working
to
on it,
go
Don.
down there, that would be a great place to have an undersea base, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and again, and this goes to the talk that I do that is very well received around the country, and that's the one on interdimensional travel, because that's probably how they do it. Now of late, Avi Loeb has come on board with this, not with me personally, but I know Avi. We've done work together, as you know, and we actually he was able to come out and say, because he's the chairman of the astrophysics department at Harvard. So the guy knows his stuff. He wrote about Oumuamua, that asteroid that came through our atmosphere, sort of the solar system, and did a weird pirouette on the way out. And
cigar shaped, we might add.
Actually, pancake shaped. It wasn't actually long and thin. It was actually a pancake. So that's the truth of Oumuamua. They thought it was like 700 feet long and 70 feet wide, like 10 times longer than it was wide. But it turns out it wasn't. It was actually a pancake. And so it was probably rolling. So, and here it was one thing, here was another. So maybe that pancake had something to do. Now, that's something we knew right from the very beginning, but the press got wind of it and started thinking it was a long spindle, which it wasn't ever. But that said,
damn fake news.
It's right. But the thing is, okay, interdimensional travel is probably the best answer, and here's why. Okay, I don't just say things without science behind it, and you know me, I can't. If you look at certain particles in the atomic world, at the quantum arena, there's certain particles that have capabilities that are not well researched. Among them is the Kaluza-Klein particle, Kaluza, and Klein, Kaluza-Klein. And the Kaluza-Klein particle is very interesting. CERN created a detector called ATLAS, ATLAS, all caps, and ATLAS was used to study, in part, Kaluza-Klein particles. The reason is because they're very interesting. And the reason they're interesting is because they may hold the secret to how gravity works. Maybe. And if you look at the quantum fundamental forces, we have the strong force, the weak force, electromagnetic force, which is light, and then we have gravity at the end. Okay. Strong, weak, electromagnetic, we know what those are. Okay. Every one of those forces has components that can be either a particle or a wave. Light's a photon, and it's a light wave, right? So we have the same thing with the other fundamental forces. Gravity, that weirdo that's gravity, that doesn't have a fundamental particle associated with it. But however, we now see that we can see gravitational waves. All right, so we have the wave nature of gravity. Before that, we didn't have anything. We just had a calculation, F equals GMM over R squared. We could calculate the force of one mass and another mass and the gravity between them, like Earth and Moon. That got us out of the solar system with the Voyagers. That got us to Mars. That got us onto the moon. So that works, calculating a value. But what about using gravity for other things? That requires a deeper understanding of gravity, which we still don't have. However, the Kaluza-Klein particle offers us a window into what gravity may be, because we found gravitational waves. Now we need the gravitational particle. Enter the concept of the Kaluza-Klein graviton. And the Kaluza-Klein graviton is a particle, theoretically, that lives outside of our four dimensions. And when we look at the different dimensions, we have four, X, Y, and Z moving through time. That's where we all exist. Everything we've done is in there, along with the calculation of gravity and not manipulation of it at all. But there's a fifth dimension in this variation of the theory. And that fifth dimension is where you go into that, if you can get into that fifth dimension, it's highly warped. The farther in you go, the smaller the universe becomes around you. Okay, you come out and it's like normal size, 1-to-1 size. Travel 12 inches in our 4 dimensions. You go 1 through 3, 4, 5, all the way to 12 inches, exactly 12 inches. Go into this fifth dimension by a little bit, travel that same 12 inches. When you come out, that 12 inches will have expanded maybe 6 feet. Okay, because you're traveling 12 inches in a compressed space, effectively. And so when you come out, that expands to an actual space. Okay, so with that process in mind, these Kaluza-Klein particles live in this fifth dimension. And if we can generate them in our 4 dimensions, as we generate them and surround our spacecraft with them, the spacecraft will be pulled into the fifth dimension. All right. And within the fifth dimension, if the spacecraft makes a transit of any kind to say it goes 10 feet, 20 feet, 100 feet, a mile. Okay. When it comes out, depending how far in it goes, that might translate to a couple of feet to Alpha Centauri. So
what you reminded me here, Mark, is something in science fiction with Dr. Who. It's very similar to the explanation of how the inside of the TARDIS works, that it's not in the same dimension.
Time and relative dimensions in space. Yeah, that's true. But the thing is, you got to remember that science fiction writers also read science. Mm-hmm. So they're utilizing, they're taking and they're adding things in, like the warp drive in Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry was no dummy to science. Okay. He was also a masterful writer, and he included theories about warping space to create warp drive. And sure enough, there's a theoretical warp drive called the Alcubierre drive, which we can use to maybe get to Alpha Centauri in 5 days. However, using this interdimensional travel methodology, we could get there in 20 minutes. Okay. Now that is interesting because, and there's a lot of overlap here. A lot of things that make sense. Give you an example. UFOs. What's the classic shape of the UFO?
Dish.
Okay. Saucer. Right? But round typically and triangular. You can circumscribe a circle inside of a triangle. Okay. Do you know why they're that shape? I think I do. I know, making you think. Okay. Think about this. The particles have to be generated by something in order to go into this fifth dimension. Okay. Good question, Charles. I'll answer that in a minute. Okay. So now if you consider that the object or the energy source that has to create these particles, you have to create, and then you have to create the particles using a mechanism. How do we create particles now? What do? We have particle accelerators. What shape is the Large Hadron Collider? Round. Imagine 1,000 years from now, we can actually make a system, a collider, that is only 30 feet across and does the same type of job.
Mark, you're going to need to pick this up after the break.
Oh, I like that. Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Are we there now?
On. There you go.
Okay. Well, let's see. Where are we at? No, it's no, we still have 2 minutes.
Oh, I thought she said in 56 seconds. Okay. I apologize.
No, it said 7:56.
That's going to reflect on your paycheck, Gary.
I know. I'll go from zero to negative to where I have to pay you.
Right. All right. So the point being, okay, the point being on this all is that UFOs are around because they're particle accelerators. All right. They generate the particles that sucks them into this fifth dimension. And when they come back out, okay, they have traveled some distance. What's that look like to your eyes watching this happen in our 4 dimensions? It'll shimmer and change color. It'll vanish from sight and reappear. It might disappear.
Blink out.
Yep, might disappear from here and appear over here, over there. Okay. Now, as an astronomer, I can tell you the changing of colors can be atmospheric scintillation. Yeah, that happens with point sources in the sky, sure. As an astronomer, I can tell you that the autokinetic effect can be in play too, where your eyes are not evolved to pick out individual objects in the sky and check their path out, because that's not how we evolved. Okay, you can't tell where something just flashed from for real. And objects that are at the edge of your visual range will seem to wink out and wink in. You can see Venus with your eyes during the daytime if you know where to look. I've seen it, but then you look away and it's like, oh, it's gone. So it's right at the edge of your visibility. All those factors, all right, can be what I just said. Simple, physics. Okay. However, we can't deny they could also be Kaluza-Klein particles in play, Kaluza-Klein gravitons in play, because Kaluza-Klein gravitons make micro black holes because they're very, very powerful gravitons, 10 to the 16th times as powerful as the one holding us all to our chairs.
Well, Mark, hold that thought, buddy, because now we do got to take that break.
Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dark Matters Radio, heard exclusively on KGRA Digital Broadcast.
It's dark,
TV.
all right.
And we are back for the next hour. Marc Dantonio, got a question for you. And this is something I've thought about for a very long time. Let us, for the sake of argument, say that we developed a star drive of some type.
Okay.
Now, close around us, and when I say close, I'm talking about, 5, 10 light years. We probably would be okay. But what do we do if we want to go much further out? What star charts do we use? Would we know how to get out there, and even better, how to get back? This is something I've thought about. On Star Trek, they'll tell them to go to such and such a point, Mark 3, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And of course, I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. I don't even know if they did.
Yeah, neither do they. Well, that's the beauty of this Kaluza-Klein propulsion model. You don't have to travel from point A to point B by going through every point between point A and point B. You literally leave point A and appear at point B. Now, that sounds like magic. It sounds like science fiction. But any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And that is something that's in our history. We know that in our history. So here's how this works. You generate these Kaluza-Klein gravitons around your ship. You go into this fifth dimension. What happens here is if this glass is going into the fifth dimension, it will simply vanish. And I'll have empty hands right here. It's like, whoa, and it's really not here. It's gone. Okay? It's in the fifth dimension. Now, that is a true location. It leaves our 4 dimensions. And when it winks out, when it goes and punches out of our 4 dimensions, it will simply vanish. It's a fact of science that this will happen, right? We'll get to the point where it's going to be a fact of life, I think. And so when it pops back in, it might pop in over here. Oh, here it is. Here it is right here. Here's this thing. It just popped in right here. It went from here in my hands to here. All right. Now, the thing is, you don't care what's in between. Not only that, if you see a UFO traveling in the sky and it makes a sharp 90-degree turn, what do we always say? Oh, no occupants could survive that kind of force, right? Well, what's happening is they don't feel a thing. The reason? Because they don't even have engines. They just have a particle accelerator to make particles so they can punch out and punch in at a different point. Their travel mode is this: dot, 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 dot. To go from A to B, they're traveling a bunch of points in between. They punch out, punch in, punch out, punch in, punch out, punch in, all the way until they get to their point. All they have to do is moderate the number of particles they have at any one time around their ship, and they can do this process.
Now, have they done experiments on this, like at the Hadron Collider?
No, that's not an experiment being done right now. Actually, what's interesting about this whole process, though, is that if we look at all of the connecting observations and historical data, we see that this is something that's been pervasive in the UFO arena. They always look like they're making 90-degree turns sometimes. They always look like they're speeding at unknown speeds. They're traveling underwater at hundreds of miles an hour. How are they doing that without disturbing the water? They're doing it because they're not really traveling through the water. They're traveling from this point to this point, to this point, to this point, to this point, to this point. And by traveling to these individual points, and let me just turn on my background here. Okay. So in order to, when they travel from one point to another, they're just traveling from here to here, then here to here. Ding, 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 ding.
Are you talking about like microbursts to where that's why we can see them moving so fast?
That's right. Because to our instruments and to our eyes, we can't tell that they're actually doing discrete pops.
Which is why we're not seeing them have any drag.
Exactly. Because they're not dragging. They're just appearing and then disappearing, appearing and disappearing at different locations. So here is what I think. I think that alien life out there, if it's sufficiently advanced, and it only needs like 1,000 years on us, it doesn't need a lot more. If it's about 1,000 years advanced, then what they'll do is they'll generate these particles around their ship. We'll talk about how in a minute, okay? And then they're going to make these series of discrete motions and discrete pops. Now, all they need to do is generate the particles. They don't need to store fuel. They don't need to carry fuel. They can actually create everything they need on the fly, all right? Food and sustenance, not a problem. They can just go to some place where they know they have some. And the answer to how they actually work at high speed in the air and underwater is the following. When they're underwater, we're subject to high pressure. Witness the Titan, Ocean Gate's Titan. Okay, in less than a millisecond, that imploded. Okay, at 13,000 feet below the ocean. Well, the Marianas Trench is much deeper. So could they be there? Yeah, they could. How could they possibly be there? They could be there if they're, and this is the part that you got to accept for a moment, if they're not really there at all. And the way it works is they oscillate back and forth between this fifth dimension and our dimension. Okay. And they do this at a very high frequency. So they're neither here nor there at any one point in time. So they don't feel the forces. Okay. They're oscillating at frequencies far higher than anything that we might conventionally use. All right. So if
this might be why we don't see them or can't find them.
This is why when we do see them, they seem to always have some weird aura around them and weird look to them. Okay, that's one of the things. Another thing is let's go to land. When they land, okay, the occupants are in the center core, right? The accelerator ring, I believe, is on the outside. It makes the particles. When you tell charged particles to go in a circle faster and faster and faster, you're telling them to go in a circle by using magnetic fields to guide them. Okay, so this waveguide system is made of highly powerful magnets. And whenever you make a charged particle go in a circular path, when it wants to go straight, you generate radiation that's detrimental to us. That radiation is called synchrotron radiation, and it comes out radially on all sides. So as the particle is going around the tube like this, synchrotron radiation is coming out the top and the sides and all the way, and it's even going toward the center. But that center core where they are, the occupants, is shielded from the synchrotron source, and it doesn't hurt them. So this is why, potentially, when someone goes up to a UFO and touches it, what happens?
They get burned.
They get burned. What are they? Synchrotron burns. I mean, it all comes together, right? The Lundgren case, they got radiation sickness, radiation poisoning, right? Well, wonder why. Well, it could have been a nuclear-powered aircraft being tested, nuclear-powered helicopter or something. That's possible, and we certainly have done that kind of crap. But before we realized how dangerous radiation is. But we also know that the synchrotron radiation can be generated, and they could actually be getting synchrotron burns by being close to these things. One guy had the vent holes actually burned onto his skin. Remember that?
Yeah, I went to the ER and they couldn't figure out what caused it.
Right. Yeah, and that's because at the time they weren't looking for radiation damage. It could have been synchrotron burns from the particle accelerator on the outside ring. They don't have to shield what's outside because they're inside, right? Now, here's the thing. These particles that they generate that surround their ship, these Kaluza-Klein gravitons, if they really exist, and this is how it works, theoretically what happens is these gravitons, they create micro black holes. We know about micro black holes. We're comfortable with the concept of micro black holes.
Yeah, because they end up they dissipate. They just self-delete.
They basically
because
evaporate.
they're not big enough to live.
Yeah, they evaporate within a nanosecond or so. So they only last a very, very short time. What that means is that we have to create lots of them around our ship to have a net number of them at any one time. So let's create a bunch of them. So we create a bunch of them, and I'll still talk about the power source to do that in just a sec. But
are you talking antimatter here?
No.
By doing that?
This is just micro black holes generated by the Kaluza-Klein particles, because they're 10 to the 16th times more powerful than our gravitons. They're gravitons, right? Now, the Kaluza-Klein graviton theoretically lives in this other dimension. So if you create enough of them around your ship, you're going to get pulled into their home, which is the fifth dimension, effectively. Okay. So now let's take this a step further. You've got these gravitons around your ship. They've made micro black holes which disappear. They pop out of existence almost as soon as they come in. But there's a net number of them around there. If you're looking at it with your eyes, what are you going to see? You're going to see color changes. You're going to see shimmering, outright vanishing, and reappearing. And you're going to see possibly the thing disappear from one spot and appear over there. Okay. That's something that could really happen potentially with this process. Now, again, I don't go too far down the path because we can't prove any of this yet, but I will say this much of it. If you have micro black holes, and if you have micro black holes, and you generate them around your ship, the micro black holes are going to do one final thing that is exceedingly important. And that is they're going to eat up a little bit of a air molecule. They're going to eat up a little bit of the light that would otherwise go to your eye, which explains the lighting effects you might see. But the other thing they're going to do is they're going to eat up the Earth gravitons. And that means they're not going to allow Earth gravity to affect them. And this is something we see in the literature. Well, the UFO looked like a falling leaf in the sky. It just was tumbling kind of end over end. That made no sense because we think airplanes need to fly in a straight line because they're probing and penetrating a medium called air. The UFO doesn't feel the gravity. It doesn't need that. It just can flutter like a leaf and just travel along. The occupants don't care. They're just disappearing from one spot.
Which is why in some of the video footage that they got in 2004, the Navy, where some of these objects were just sort of tumbling in the air, not really doing anything.
And that could explain exactly why they're doing that. Yeah. I'm not saying those objects were UFOs, but if
it's no proof of it.
That could be why, right? So as we look more into this, it turns out, holy cow, there's a whole lot of things that make sense here. A whole lot of things that make sense, more than we ever thought possible.
That one was called the gimbal, the one I was talking about, by the way.
So I wonder how long. Let's say it's 1,000 years. Okay. So I wonder how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of years, going back to Don's question about Star Trek, it would take them to map it out to where when they're jumping, they don't jump into a planet or they don't jump into something horrible like a sun or something. How long is it going to take to map that out?
That was my next comment, because the final piece of the puzzle is when they reappear in the 4 dimensions, they have to know what's there, don't they?
Ahead of time.
Right. So what that means to me is one of two things. Either they have a system that's very fast, quantum computing potentially and beyond what we understand, maybe in their own brains, okay, that allows them to see ahead into that dimension they're going to enter back into and see if there's something there and make a course correction immediately on the fly.
Right.
That would be the smart way to go, so they probably do that. The other thing is they probably have exit and entry points mapped out already. And these exit and entry points are dynamically updated for current objects. There's probably systems that are going through the local universe where they're jumping and making sure they have clean jumps.
Yeah, they're going to send drones out with nobody in it to like boom, 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 boom. Right. But
But see, we don't want to assign our morality to them. They might send their own people out.
Well, yeah. I think you're blowing it, and here's what I think it's all about. Okay, Jake Barber just came forward, the UFO egg guy. He came forward and said that they can make the egg-shaped thing materialize due to their emotions via the Greer thing. Okay, so maybe it's all based on love there, Mark. Come on. Come on.
Love
Mark,
is
I
the
love you.
fifth dimension.
I love you, but I'm not on that side of it. Oh, yeah.
I know. As soon as I heard that he was involved with, or let's say in bed with, which is a horrible sight with Greer, and they were all about bringing him in and, you know, the lovey-dovey aspect of it. I don't know. Maybe it's true, but you bring in Greer, I'm out. So
I'm with you on that, 100%. Hey, not to change the subject, but would you like to see the Benson telescope?
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Hell yes.
Okay, well, I'm in Connecticut, and I
Allegedly.
have it. Allegedly, you're funny.
Which puts you an hour in the future from me, and 3 hours in the future from Mark and Don.
Yeah, that's
he
right.
could be at the collider. Who knows?
Okay. Well,
Trust nothing he says.
Trust nothing I say. I have gravitons around me.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, if you bring this in, you'll see it. Hopefully it'll work. I'm not sure. I've had problems with this with StreamYard before. But if you bring in, I think you got to bring it in, don't you?
It's either Jagari or
Chanel. It's Chanel.
Oh, okay.
She said, "I'm not sure how to do that, but she's going to try." Hey, look.
Oh, I was trying to get her to give me a wrench.
Yeah, it's making this is not what I see. I see a very stable look here.
Right. Right.
So that's rather annoying. I'm sorry. But telescope's operational, and right now I'm moving it up in the air. Like I said, I'm in Connecticut. It's 2,600 miles away.
Look, it's moving.
It is, yeah. And
but what's it seeing? What's it seeing?
Well, right now it's seeing the sunset. Okay, so we gotta do something about the sunset. I don't have the camera app started. I don't have the guiding app started. I don't have any of those started. But this is the controller system for it. It has a digital image of the telescope.
Wow,
to
dude.
See it. Okay, I did not write this, but this is the telescope in the building. It's sort of up over your head. I mean, I come up to about here on the telescope, and then that part's all the way up in the sky. So it actually can see over the roof of the building. And so I'll be doing some testing on it tonight, and I actually have a way. Well, it looks more stable now, so let's see if it can do this.
Is there somebody who scrubs through this? Because I mean, you have thousands.
Oh, the daily footage.
Yeah. Is there somebody who scrubs through it?
Yeah, all the users. I mean, I have. Oh gosh, we have like 9,000 subscribers. They're all free subscribers, and these subscribers have access to all the data, and I make this data available to everybody. And so it's available free to anyone who wants to go grab it off of our server at skythrowlive.org. You know, the astronomy should be free. You know, I mean, education shouldn't cost money really. But so this is where it's looking in the sky right now. And if I turn off the atmosphere, okay, and we see the stars, here's the North Star. This is not a real view. This is stellarium. So
right.
But for instance, the star Castor is over here in the constellation Gemini, and if I tell the telescope to go look at Castor, okay, you'll notice the telescope's moving now.
Yeah.
Right? And it's going. You'll see the crosshair start moving over, and it's going to end up going right over to Castor.
No kidding.
Yeah, there it is. And boom. All right. Caster is right there now. And so that'll be in the center of the view. When I look at the telescope and I turn on the camera for the telescope, it'll be there. Also,
where's Wolf 359?
Oh, yeah. Wolf. Oh, you know what? I'll show you. If we look
Any
up,
Star Trek fan wants to know this.
oh, I know that. You're right. Wolf 359. Okay. Let me show you where it is. Okay. It's down below the horizon right now. If we get rid of the ground, okay,
you can see it. Cool.
It's down here, and it's a very, very faint star down here. I don't even have the database.
It's in the constellation of Leo, right?
It is. It is actually. If we look at this constellation map here, turn off the ground again. Here's Leo, and we know that because we can turn on the mythology here, and you can see Leo the lion.
Oh my God, this is awesome, dude!
Yeah, and so this is what I show people. We do this every day. I show them this live, and like for instance, we also have a lot of deep sky objects. Like these are galaxies that I'm going to image tonight, probably. And these galaxies here, these are images created by people in the past that they used in the software here. All right. But it's really fascinating stuff. And if I click on one of those and I tell the telescope to go there, well, then the telescope will move to those objects.
Well, Mark, I know when you're talking about these mythological creatures that people have seen in the sky, yes. I know what Orion's belt is. I mean, that's very simple. But when you get down to these other things, Leo and whatever, how in the hell did they see a lion in those stars, that collection of stars? I don't. I never understood.
I totally agree with you. And Don, what we do is we talk about all that stuff on our stream almost nightly when we do these clear night streams. You'll notice the telescope's pointing down right now. That's because look where it is. It's right here.
It's looking at Wolf 359.
You're right. Well, Wolf 359 is about here. But the galaxy, I'm sorry, Leo is not quite up yet. So this is the horizon, which you can kind of see there. And so it's not up yet. So the telescope is dutifully pointing right at it, but it's there. After it comes up later on tonight, I'll be able to image what's over there.
So do you have interaction of some sort with schools and things? Because this interactive software and stuff, as you're going back and forth, it would have interested me in school.
Oh yeah, it's so cool, and you should see when we have both observatories open. Like I literally switch with a single hotkey. I go to the other observatory 200 miles from this one and show the wide field view of the thing we're looking at. Shift back to this one, and we see the close-in magnified view of the same object because we're looking at the same object.
Are you approached by, I don't know, high schools or colleges or something to do this?
I wish we were, because no one's doing this.
The National Organization for Libraries, which includes school libraries and public libraries, should be talking with you. So this is available in every library.
I have no idea who to contact, to be honest.
I'll look into it for you, Mark.
You know what? That'd be great. I'll send you a Sky Tour mug and a hat.
Well, if I can get them in touch with you, yeah, I would take that as a gift.
So it's kind of interesting here, Mark, that we've all seen that they started to delay the NASA feed and all that because of the shenanigans that have gone on, right? So while it's not in space necessarily, at the very least, you're in control of this until they pull it out. Like if you were to somehow see something crazy and they said, "Oh, we're pulling the plug, Dantonio, because you've shown something you shouldn't have." Up until that point, you're in control of this.
Oh, I'm sure there are people that would just be interested in pulling the plug. But the truth is, having done, and I'm the chief photo and video analyst for MUFON, as you know. I'm also the chief analyst for the show The Proof Is Out There on History Channel. I was the chief analyst for NASA's the unexplained files on Discovery. And I've been doing this for a couple of decades for a lot of different networks. And one of the things I discovered is that whenever they said NASA pulled the plug, I researched it and found that no, NASA didn't pull the plug. It was actually just the nature of data transmission from space at the time was choppy. For instance, whenever the ISS goes over China, well, we don't get any feed. The live feed looking down from the ISS, we don't get that. It's not a politics thing. It's a fact that China's huge. And we have to be line of sight to other satellites that can relay the transmission. And until Starlink came along, we didn't have that. Now that Starlink is here, Starlink is used as a relay. And we actually end up seeing stuff that we've never seen before. So it's kind of cool. It's getting better and better. But transmissions from space are kind of tricky, And so the fact that they're actually able to do it at all is kind of amazing to me, It's just my thought, and like I said,
Mark, one of the big fears right now, and I'm not really getting into the political questions, but
okay.
One of the big fears is weaponizing space, nuclear weapons in space.
Yes.
And that is terrifying, because if that were to happen, and for all we know, there may be nuclear weapons up there, that would drastically curtail the time it would take to send a missile from space down to a target area on the planet. Probably a minute or two, a couple of minutes, no more.
Yeah, but you also keep in mind that those satellites take 90 minutes minimally to go around the planet, and they're not in one stationary location. So if they got a launch signal, they might not be able to launch for an hour until the satellite reached an area where it could launch successfully. Because if it's that far up in orbit, if it's up in orbit, it was probably going to be launching a missile that's less massive and with less propellant.
Right.
So it would probably launch more of a re-entry vehicle rather than a rocket. So to do that, it would have to drop it off over the target and then let Earth do the rest by re-entry and so forth, if it could even work that way. You might have retro rockets, slow it down.
I remember, a nuclear blast in space has a greater yield than it would within the Earth's atmosphere.
Well, the atmosphere does resist. That's correct. But the atmosphere heats up as well. I remember years ago, I had a series of events in my old house. And because of these events, I moved out, where over 3 nights, I heard noises at the peak of the roof, and they were rhythmic, bing, 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 like knocking. Okay, a series of 9 knocks, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the first night I heard them, I looked at the clock, it was 3:15 a.m. Next night I heard them, 3:15 a.m. again. I'm thinking, there's a woodpecker that's mentally incapacitated because it's vinyl siding. He's not going to get anything. And why is he banging at 3:15 in the morning? So I got up, I went to look out the window, and a blinding white flash blinded me. There was a 2-story cape at that point. No, single owner, single family. And I waited for my vision to come back. And I was like, whoa, that was crazy. And the dogs that were sleeping under the window were gone. They ran away when that happened. And they never slept under that window again, by the way, for the rest of their natural lives. And then when the third night, again, it was crazy. I grant you. The third night, I woke up again. And this time, I went to look at the clock. So I thought, 3:15 again? I go to look at the clock, and I can't move my head. Now, I'm very familiar with hypnopompic states. I use them to meditate. It's a beautiful place to be, where you're kind of floating half in and out of consciousness. And I can put myself there automatically. I practiced to do that. And when doing that, you are in control and you can bring yourself back. So I felt, oh, this is cool. I woke up in a hypnopompic state, and I went to come back, and I couldn't. Wait a minute, what's going on? And then what I did was I began to turn my head to see and I couldn't move my head. So I tried to move my eyes, and I couldn't move my eyes. It actually hurt to try and move my eyes. They were fixed and frozen. And then I saw something come in the room, and it came over, and it had like what looked like a glowing wand. It was more like, like a glowing wand, and it went back and forth under my nose, and then something happened, and the next thing I know, it was morning, and I couldn't breathe, and I struggled to breathe. I got up, I looked out at what was going on, and I pushed off the pillow because I was on my stomach, and I was literally unable to breathe because I was trying to breathe my own blood, because there was a cavity that was filling with my blood, and I was trying to breathe blood, and I had to cough and wipe my face. Everything was bloody. I don't know what happened, but from that point forward, I couldn't breathe out of this sinus. So I did what anyone that would have 3 nights of terror like that would do. I didn't even think about it and went to work normally. It just went out of my head. Not a big deal. The most momentous thing to happen, and I just decided to go to work. So 2 years later, still unable to breathe out of this, I went to the surgeon at Hartford Hospital in Connecticut. Okay, this is all on record, by the way. This is not me making stuff up. And so the surgeon looked up there, and he goes, "Holy cow!" He goes, "You got something huge up there." Oh, wow. He says, "I think we can get it out." So he reached up through here. He put that numbing stuff up in there, which went down your throat, makes you feel like you can't breathe. And he reaches up with a tool, and he pulls this thing out. And what came out of that little hole was something the size of my 2 thumbs stacked. Okay. And it was a gelatinous blob. And I said, "What the hell is that?" And he said, "Wow." He says, "It looks like a polyp, but that's like one of the biggest polyps I've ever seen in the entire history of having this office." And then I asked him this question, because that's the sinus that was affected. I said, "How do those form? Do those possibly seed around something that's a foreign object?" "Oh, you mean like he said, "You mean like a splinter that a machinist might get?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Sure." He goes, "Why?" And I stupidly told him the story I just told you. Okay. And he laughed. "I'm sure it wasn't aliens." And I went, "Of course not. No, not aliens." And he says, "Call
Need
me
the
in a
little
week."
Greek guy right now saying it was aliens.
I know, that's right. Is it aliens? Okay. And so he said, "Call me in a week. I'll give you the results." Okay. So a week later, I give him a call, and I call, "Hi, it's Marc Dantonio. And I was just calling. Oh, hold on. Doctor has to talk to you." What? Uh-oh. What I have, like my head's going to fall off? Is a disease? My head's like going to like wither away? I don't know. He gets on the phone. "Hey, Mr. Dantonio, I just want to let you know it's probably benign. Nothing to worry about." I went, "Oh, you didn't get the results yet?" And I heard him go, "Oh, well," he says, "I've had this office for 35 years. This has never happened before." And I go, "Here it comes." He says, "But they got it down there, but they can't seem to find it." Oh, he says, "But it's benign." Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Now,
Yeah, before we lost it, we know it was benign.
yeah, right. Yeah. And I said probably benign, because he says it looked like the biggest nasal polyp he's ever seen in his life. Okay. That's not a clue. So a few years later, I had to go to him again for another ailment. Okay, I can't remember what it was. And he said to me, well, and this time when I filled out the intake sheet, okay, the intake sheet, where I always fill out that I'm nursing and I'm pregnant, just for fun. Okay, I draw little pictures, okay, on the intake sheet because they're silly. All right, and my wife being a medical assistant, he comes into the room and says, "How my medical assistants love you." And so I just want to be nice to the medical assistants because it's nice. It's a little, they're kind of a close family. She didn't work in that office. But anyway, in the occupation section, this time, instead of just saying that I make models for a living, I said I do special projects for the Navy, which is true. And that's something I could legally say. And so he walks in and he goes, "Special projects for the Navy, huh?" And he goes, "I saw that." He goes, "And by the way, my medical assistants love you." I go, "Well, he goes, they have to read those all day long. So that's kind of cool. You brighten their day." "Oh, nice, nice." He goes, "However," he goes, I was in the Navy. Really? Yeah. He goes, I was working in special projects too, if you know what I mean. And one of these projects, ready for this? This goes to your point earlier. Um, we launched a nuclear weapon into space to take down an enemy satellite. I went, what? Yeah,
Mm.
it relates. Yeah. He says, I just gave up my top secret clearance this year. I go, you're kidding me. What? Uh, top secret nasal polyps? I mean, and he laughs. Oh, no. He says, I wasn't always a surgeon. And he got really serious. And he was telling me how this project they launched a nuclear weapon from an atoll in the Pacific, and they took out an enemy satellite with the EMP burst. And the thing that was interesting about this was that I know about that project, but I knew that it was just a test stated to ostensibly test the effects of radiation on the ionosphere. That's what they said. But what it was really doing was taking down an enemy satellite to show that space could be weaponized. See that? Circle.
And it was probably a tactical, which has a smaller yield, but still in space, I would expect it to expand fast with no interruption.
See, in space, one of the things that's interesting is there's no explosion per se. Space is just destruction and debris.
I've seen the movies. There's explosions. Come on.
You watch too much Armageddon.
Michael Bay says they're giant explosions in space.
Explosions need oxygen. So without the oxygen, the explosion is just a dull cloud of debris expanding. Okay. There is no flash of flame, except if it's an oxygen tank. Then you might get a brief one near the tank. So the point being,
well, when you say an enemy satellite, who the hell was the enemy?
China.
Oh, at the time it was probably Russia. I guess that's all I can surmise.
Oh, when did it take place? Do you think?
This was, I think it was called Project Starfish. All right. So you look up Project Starfish. There was another one too, where they also tested the ionospheric blast. And I said to him, well, doesn't that violate every treaty we've ever signed with everybody? By weaponizing space?
Treaty? What treaty?
And you know what he said? Yeah, exactly. You know what he said, Mark? He goes, oh, well, that's why we cleared the Pacific for 1,600 miles around the atoll. Oh, it's not illegal if you can't see it.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, how many, because I've seen the Starlink trails and all that. First time I saw it, I called on and said, oh my God. And then I went on the internet and said, oh.
It's the fleet. They're coming to get me.
So in your estimation, with what you know, how many, since we have so many satellites up there now, how many are failing on a regular basis and coming back in to burn up?
Well, actually, I don't know how many are failing on a regular basis right now. Actually, that's an interesting comment. So the failure rate is not published. Okay,
right.
But I do know that they do fail from time to time, and what happens sometimes is during times of solar, activity, high solar activity. What might happen is that the atmosphere can expand a little and retract a little bit, So that expansion and so forth, that can affect satellites in orbit. It affects the ISS. The ISS has to routinely boost itself higher in orbit with little boosts to give it another orbital boost because it's hitting a few molecules of air in every single orbit every single second. Because even at 252 miles, there's still some spurious air molecules up there. Okay. So they have to boost it up, do the boost from time to time. That said, one of the things that's interesting about this is that if you look at, and I'm just going to park the telescope now because I think we're done with that.
By the way, Mark, it says 1962.
Oh, for Starfish?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll read it to you real quick. Summer of 1962, the U.S. government detonated a real high-altitude warhead. The Starfish Prime rocket was launched from a remote outcrop called Johnston Island, dredged from the Coral Atoll, and barely large enough for a runway and a handful of military buildings.
Yep. And
There
that's
you
all
go.
they say about it. They don't say what it was
That's
for.
it. There's nothing else. There's nothing else available.
Yeah. Well, what's really going on was they were trying to see how the EMP would affect an enemy satellite. Again, probably Russia, the start of the Cold War already underway. So clearly, that was something that was on their minds.
So what's the possibility of a Clooney happening in space in that stupid movie where that space junk comes in and does its thing, and I don't even remember the name of that stupid film. Him and the gal from Speed, and that junk comes in and it totally.
Sandra Bullock and George Clooney.
Right.
Yeah. Well, okay. The junk coming in high speed is something that is a fabrication. I'll tell you why.
All right.
Because large pieces of space junk traveling at that speed would have to have been launched from the ground, and they're going up to a higher orbit, have an accident on the way, and then some high-speed particles could come through and puncture a few things. Yes, that's true.
But nothing as catastrophic as that.
No, not at all. But could it happen? Well, yeah, it could. And the astronauts have to worry about a lot of things. They have to worry about solar radiation and ultraviolet rays from the sun. They have to worry about the Van Allen radiation belts that are also pulsating.
Also, foreign satellites, right?
Foreign satellites, though, no, those all have their definitive orbits, and you're not going to suddenly get a satellite showing up. It's coming right for us. That's not going to happen up there. That's our orbit. Nothing else is in it except the Orion spacecraft and the Dragon capsule will match the orbit to drop off and pick up, and the Progress rockets from the Soyuzes as well. So that's the kind of thing that happens, but I don't see how any of that has anything to do with the other pseudo reality of something hitting the space station and causing massive damage. I don't see that happening at this point. That's just me. I don't work for them. I'm not a space guy in that regard. I'm just a lowly astronomer. Okay. But the fact is,
Nerd.
Yeah. See, I am a nerd. See, you know why? Because I have my glasses.
There you go.
So, as an astronomer nerd guy, if you could pick out a Hollywood movie that actually made sense to you with whatever went on, right? You have one that you watched and said, "Wow, this is shit science, but there's actually some good stuff in here."
Well, I like Contact. I thought Contact was really good. I like Contact for that reason. Of course, Sagan wrote the original book, right?
Right.
Interstellar was actually clever because Interstellar showed the black hole concept correctly. And Kip Thorne is the astrophysicist that was the consultant on there. And years ago, I sat with Kip and we talked about black holes. And he went through this whole process of time travel possibilities using black holes. And the way it worked was you could actually see your ship coming out of the exiting white hole that was the theoretical exit point of a black hole before you actually entered the black hole. Moments before you enter, you could see your ship coming out. Nice. It had to do with relativistic information transfer through the black hole.
Is this part of what could occur within the event horizon itself?
Well, yeah, it has to do with what happens at the event horizon. If you see somebody fall into a black hole, they don't just go and vanish and disappear. Okay, let's leave out the effects of the fact they get stretched out to an infinitely long.
The spaghetti thing.
The spaghettification is just disgusting. But we'll leave that out. But what happens is, if you look at a black hole event horizon, as something's falling into the black hole's event horizon, it'll reach the point where the light can't get out, but it can't quite get out, but it doesn't get fully pulled in yet. And you'll just see the thing, freeze there for a period of time. And then it'll slowly fade away as the photons get dispersed. So it'll be like a splat on the windshield where it fades away after a while. Yeah. Which is kind of cool. What do you think, Don? You think that's cool or no?
Sure, it's very cool, but I'm sitting here. I'm lost in my own thoughts about some of this stuff. When you said events around the black hole, no, I'm not going to say.
Don't go there. Don't go to the politics of California, Don.
Probably wise.
No, I'm not going to.
And whatever you do, use modern Star Trek science, it's wrecked.
I prefer the original series.
Of course you do.
I'm 94.
I'm a deep Space Nine guy.
I'm 94, and I'm going to be in the new series.
I worked on his show. I did Unexplained with William Shatner. And then when I got to the set, I said, do you guys mind?
I caught you on there, by the way.
Huh?
I caught your name on there. I watched that show.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Thank you. And when I got there, I asked, I said, can I do my Shatner impression? And they said, oh, you better not. You better not.
We'll let you
There's
know.
only one guy he lets do it and get away with it.
Kevin
it was like
Pollak.
Kevin something. Kevin
Pollak.
Kevin Pollak, yeah. He does a good Shatner impression. So if you do a Pollak impression, now you got something,
Yeah, doing the impression of Kevin Pollak doing Captain
That's
Kirk.
exactly
I do that. That's what I do.
That's
when
right.
I do it, I'm doing
You
Kevin
do.
Pollak.
A nasal part of that. That's William Shatner.
We, the people of a more perfect union.
Over worship words, you will not speak them. I remember that episode, of course, because I'm a nerd.
Of course.
I'm a Star
And
Trek
I've
nerd.
always explained the difference between a nerd and a geek. A geek is a guy who likes nerdy stuff. Nerds are the smart geeks. They're the ones that are into the science.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But the bottom line is they all collect Chinese plastic. All right?
Yes. Like you don't do it, Mark.
I don't. I do not. I sent Don some Chinese plastic that he never shows on camera.
Chinese plastic?
Yeah, action
Trinkets?
figures.
Action figures, those little trinkets.
I sent Don an Elvira action figure because let's just say it stands proud.
I'm sure it does.
Yes.
You should
yes.
put it on your
Don likes
headset,
to keep-
Don.
Don
Just
likes
put
to
it
keep
right
abreast of things. You know how he
Yeah,
is.
exactly.
Abreast, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I don't
I'll
want
tell
to
you, I
I don't want to make a booba the guy.
I pined for her for years, and then she decided to play in the home team. So what are you going to do?
Hey,
Yeah, it's okay.
I always
Everybody
feel
makes
bad for him
mistakes.
because I think money pushes him to do these things.
It used to push them in that direction, but unfortunately, it's not working anymore. But that's just my thoughts. So
Yeah.
look,
So here we are.
so the question here comes this, all right. Getting back to what it is that we're all here for, okay? I feel that the sciences should be available to people for free. And that's why I started SkyTour Livestream at all, because I felt it should be free. And I'm proud to say now we have a really nice, cohesive SkyTour family, people that are there every night that I stream and that actually do things to support us. Yes, there's the giving us donations and stuff like that. We do have it is a 501c3, and we are a nonprofit organization. There's 3 people in there. I have Marianne Robb is our financial officer, and Tara Deulis is our she's the other officer in the group, and then there's me, and I'm the big mouth. Okay, I do the talking.
You're the
stuff.
pretty face. I got you.
Oh yeah, that's right. So anyway, the bottom line is that for me, I always had a passion for astronomy. So what I did was I created an observatory on my front lawn here in Terryville, Connecticut, where I live, a dome on my front lawn, a real dome. People thought it's a missile silo. Look out for that guy. He's got weapons in there. They're lasers. He's shining them at planes. Okay, whatever. It's a NASA field base. It had all. It's an underground facility. That's just the entrance. Oh, heard it all. So Halloween rolls around, and I dress it up like Stuart the Minion because it looked just like him.
That's
Put a
great.
big eye on it. Okay, yellow with the coveralls, and the people stopping because it was the only one in the town. I guess there's no other giant observatories dressed like Stuart the Minion in the town. So people taking pictures and all that stuff, and then when it was just a white observatory after that, people still drove up the driveway all the time. Hey, is that an observatory? Yeah, want to see? Sure. I take them in. They see the old setup. That's the telescope that's behind me that you can't really see, but it's over right there. You can't. It's right there. Okay, that was the telescope that used to be in it, and there it is. Can't really see it. But anyway, that's the one that used to be in it, and it showed us some great sights. But I sold the dome because I outgrew it, and I kept trying to put stuff in the corner inside the dome, and it made me nuts. You get the joke?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Fine, there you go. Yeah. Well, anyway,
my problem is I take people literally and I miss jokes.
Okay. Well, the bottom line in this case, I sold a dome when I outgrew it, and now what I've got out there is I got this steel pier sitting out there, all covered, and I'm going to revive it, and I'm going to actually put a solar observatory out there, and that's going to be just a platform on top of the pier, no building around it, but a cover that's going to be actuated by these linear actuators, which are going to pull the cover on and off, and they can carry 300 pounds apiece. So even if it got covered with 5 feet of snow, it'll lift it like nothing and take it right off. Okay. So I don't even have to be here to operate it. And it's going to look at the sun. That's all it's going to do. And it's going to actually look at the prominences and the flares on the surface of the sun. It's going to show people for the first time, for many of them, what's going on in the sun. And they're going to have an astronomer to tell them what's happening and what is actually going on from a chemical point of view, from an energy point of view, and from an actual physical point of view. They'll learn what a coronal mass ejection really is, and why the auroras actually happen, what causes them, and how it actually works. And we had the auroras, the coronal mass ejection from a few months ago was so strong that from our Sonoran Observatory down in Arizona, I have an all sky cam, and it does the all night, which is where our cool things that we see that are odd show up. Our all night time lapses we do every single night, and these all night time lapses show everything in the sky, and you see the sky rotating out from under you all night long. Well, what happens is these objects that we end up seeing, sometimes they're natural, like the zodiacal light, which is the backlit dust of our solar system, and like auroras. I didn't expect to see the aurora borealis in Arizona. Those two things should not be used in the same sentence. But there they were. And we had a major event. And you might remember in the 1800s, the Carrington event, which actually was this stream of highly charged protons and electrons. That's the solar wind. Hit over the North Pole, spiraled down, went into the bedrock, and then shot out in all directions, knocking out electricity, causing major problems. And so the Carrington event undoubtedly spurred some gorgeous auroras as well. But when we're looking at the auroras, we're looking at a lot of, mega electron volts of stuff coming into our atmosphere. And to see them down in Arizona means that if you look at the Earth from the top, it has an oval shape of auroras that are always there. And that auroral oval was fat and big and went all the way down as far as Mexico.
Didn't that play havoc with all the satellites up there, Mark?
It did. In fact, that's called the satellite environment or the satellite climate. Okay, the satellite environment, the space environment, if you will, was affected because the aurora borealis and that strong CME did cause the atmosphere to expand, which impacted satellites. And some of the satellites that ended up re-entering the Earth's atmosphere may have been spurred on by the drag induced by this event. So that happens too. It's pretty crazy.
So when you rebuild that thing in your front yard, you'll be able to show proof of UFOs as they back up to the sun and repower themselves, right?
Exactly.
Excellent.
Well, guys,
Excellent.
we have less than 1 minute. Mark, do you
Ask
have
your questions. Hurry up.
do you have any announcements or anything you'd like to make?
A website?
Yeah, the website is skytourlive.org. And it's our portal to everything we do. We have a Patreon. We have a donate now button. People can join us and become part of our family for free. I don't charge for anything we do. People can come in and see everything we do and then take down the imagery, because we have at the portal, you can find the link to go to our database and take everything
And
for
Chanel
years and
shared
years.
your link, and I asked her to share it one more time before we leave.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys. Well, look, Marc Dantonio, this has been a great 2 hours. Thank you so much.
Had a great time with you.
Great luck on your dual system now. And ladies and gentlemen, Thursday, UAP Crossfire, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 Eastern. And we'll see you next week. Take care. Good night.
God bless Sam and Dean Winchester.
Okay.